So for those who are watching us for the first time, what we do in this show, we review the pitch deck with the eyes of the real investor, and we give honest feedback, not the polished, tolerant, California-style VC pitch deck. You're awesome, you're doing great, we're just not interested yet. Our goal is to help you guys to grow and learn from this and understand how can you position yourself and your pitch, your email, your presentation, the way that it's going to resonate with the investor and not just going to go into the never respond folder. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. We're ready. Let's go to the first startup.
All right, I'm a little nervous now. This is great. And I genuinely haven't seen these before. So, okay, so the first one is Redlines. And just so founders are aware, the moment the email arrives in my inbox, that's the beginning of our relationship and interaction. Do not underestimate the importance of that. Everything from the first interaction is important. And if you can, a warm introduction beats a cold introduction every day of the week. It instantly gains you the credibility that the person making the introduction has. You just invariably get that. So the best thing you can do is get a warm introduction through to anyone you're looking to get investment from. When you send an email, your goal is not for me to write a check within 30 minutes. Your goal with the email is to get me excited enough to open the attachment. Mm-hmm. The attachment should get me excited enough to want to jump on a call with you. The call with you should get me excited enough to want to do due diligence and invest in you further. So don't oversell.
Right, so it's a funnel,
here,
right?
It's a funnel.
You need to warm up that relationship.
Exactly. And the key here is make it really easy for me. There's a book I love called Don't Make Me Think from someone called Steve Krug. It's a kind of a design user experience book. I get to give it to everybody who works for me. But the concept is don't force me to translate your idea into something sensible. Don't force me to do the thinking. So, okay, so this is good. It's probably 2 sentences. It's relatively clear. I'm still not entirely sure what it is that Redlines does.
What did you got so far?
So I got so far that it's some mechanism to make my life easier. So I'm thinking about this from a very selfish perspective.
Okay.
I'm the consumer for a moment. It feels like it's a mechanism to connect. It feels like it's a consumer-based product. So look, I'm in enough to open the attachment.
Okay.
So that's a good start.
Okay, that's promising.
Yeah. All right, so let's.
They have a link to a video, so you wouldn't go and watch a video.
I would start with the attachment, and I would try and understand as best I can the product, and then I think the video should enhance that for me. You know, a good pitch deck will follow a really similar path. It's problem, solution, description of product, preferably really visual and easy for me to understand how it works, competitive landscape, what your secret sauce is, so what your unfair advantages versus competitors, what the total market looks like, what your team looks like, and what the deal is. You
can have the best company out there with great traction, but then if your story is hard to grasp, you just lose the attention, right?
100%.
So yeah, don't lose that chance.
Yeah, and it's everywhere. It's from your email intro through to your pitch deck, through to your verbal. I believe that if someone can't easily communicate to you what it is that they're doing, either they're nervous of you knowing exactly what it does and they're attempting to hide it a little bit, or they don't fully understand it well enough, or they haven't designed the marketing story around it. And each of those 3 things is a negative. So you just don't want to start there. You're passionate about your product. Put in the work to create a story, and it is work to create a story that's succinct, that you can tell in a variety of formats. This is a little cruel, but it's like an exam, and there are certain areas where you get scored, and you need a good score in every area, and then you need to blow it out of the park in one area. Something that just grabs me, like
oh my God,
this solves a problem I've had for years, or the market opportunity is insanely big, or the team, this is their 4th startup and they've exited 3 before. Like, something's just got to exceed. But the challenge is if you fail in any one of those, it's a red flag that will undo all of the good work in lots of other areas.
Right.
So yes, I totally agree with you. And you're starting on a back foot sometimes just because of the environment that you're in, and you just have to accept that and cater your story for that need. Connecting the dots from the first handshake to your CRM. Okay, so I've learned a little bit more now. Actually, that was helpful because I now see the space that you're in. So this is going to be some form of a top of funnel tool that's going to translate initial interactions into sales, I'm assuming.
Let's see if you're right.
Yeah, this might not even be B2C anymore. I may have got that wrong. Excellent. First slide, the problem. Love it. So they're following the right path. I'm going to do my quick flick. Next slide, the solution. Market size, super. A couple of slides and go to markets, growth, that's great. Competitive landscape, business model, super. So they look to have all of the slides that I'm looking for, and team with lots of detail and funding status. So they've got everything I need. I'm now encouraged. Yeah, okay. This is good. Yes, I fundamentally agree. You've now got me because I experienced this problem. You've made it relevant to me. Fantastic. 10 billion business cards are printed every year in the US, 90% out of the trash in less than a week. Very true. Okay, so I now get the concept, which is really helpful. I'm a little nervous now after reading this.
How so?
Because my fear is that they're attempting to create a new, and I may be wrong, attempting to create a new home for information that lives in many other places, and a new mechanism for sharing that information, in spite of the fact that there are already many ways of sharing that information today. So I'm nervous if what these guys are trying to do is to create a new social platform. I would love if what they're doing is leveraging the existing ones to improve the connectivity and the experience. So that's what my hope is as I read down through this. Okay, and then there's a try it button, so I'm assuming it's a demo of some kind. So I like that. I really like that. I'm very tactile and visual, so the more you can get me involved in playing with something, the better it is. So less words, more visualization. Love that. I'm not going to click on it right now because I have no idea where that's going to take me, so I'll keep going through the pitch deck. So the opportunity, $1.2 billion spend on business cards. Okay, so they're competing with the business card industry. I understand that's really helpful because I think awareness of your own business is incredibly important. So sometimes you see decks where people will tell you the total marketing spend in the US for an industry, and they'll just quote that number in spite of the fact that they're probably only competing for a sliver of that, or potentially they're not competing with any of that, they're competing with something else. So I think it's really important to know the market that you're looking to eat share of, and to be really explicit in that case. So I get this now. This is digital business cards. That's how
so it's a big enough market, right?
For sure.
It's niche enough.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I think $1 billion. Yeah, I think $1 billion is the magic number. Once it's that big, it means you can do an okay job and still the company will be worth a lot, or you can do great in a small area within this sector and the market size is still big enough.
Would you like to see some, or are you aware of exits in this industry, and is it important for you to see in a pitch deck?
Yeah, I think as I get a little bit further down, I'll start to consider that more, for sure, when you get to the finance slide. So then we get into timing. So technology and platform match the need for a digital exchange of information. So that's actually an interesting point. You don't see this a lot within pitch decks, but timing is incredibly important. If you look back at some of the success stories that exist, there's no reason as to why Airbnb was successful over, what was the name of the company before them? It was RBO. There was another company 10 years earlier who did virtually the same thing, but they just didn't get traction because the timing wasn't right. People weren't prepared to allow strangers into their home. So timing is incredibly important, and if you look back, you'll see that it's one of the key indicators of success for many companies. Facebook was the same. I mean, why didn't the dozen social media platforms before Facebook succeed in the same way? So it's just about timing. So I don't see it very often, but it's a really interesting point that they've referred to why the time is now. It'll help you get past examples of failures within the same space if you convince me that the time is now and the prior timing just wasn't right for those companies. So interesting slide to include. Nice. Go to market, engage professional and small businesses through digital marketing campaigns. Okay. I'm nervous. Digital marketing equals a lot of money. That's fine. They've got two other bullets on the slide. I would never leave at that. Never leave at that, because that is just a very costly way to go to market. I now hope to see in the founder's experience some events background, because if they've worked for events companies, I know that they have a mechanism to get into number 3. If I see some digital acquisition in their background, I know they're better suited to executing on number 1. And if they've got some connection to, I don't know, staples, exactly, maybe there's a mechanism for them to unlock number 2. But this is what this tells me. I've got to see some of this within the founder's experience to really believe that they can easily unlock these growth levers. So that's go-to-market strategy. So then we move on to competitive landscape. Really interesting. This is the piece of the deck where I look for honesty and transparency above all else. I don't care if there's 9 other competitors doing the exact same thing as you. If you can do it much better, if the market is not yet tapped out, that's fine. So don't pretend you're the only one doing something. Don't say you've no competitors. Just don't feel the need to sell on this slide. It should be factually accurate. That's the key thing here. And the key thing you want in founders is a level of awareness of themselves and their own product. And if they're just too blinkered, then it's going to be a real concern. So it kind of leads into like little red flags kind of later in the process as well. So right now I see private B2B, so they're in that space. Public B2B, there are some competitors. In the B2C space, there are competitors. Okay, so this also answers the question for me. This is not a consumer play. This is a B2B play, which means that if we go back to the go-to-market, I now understand those levers a bit better. This is not a true consumer marketing acquisition play. So again... So
it's a B2B2C basically.
Exactly. And so now what I want to see with the founder's experience is I want to see them having worked with the companies that they want to sign. If they're not working with the companies that they've worked with before, that's a flag for me. So I no longer need consumer marketing experience. I now need to see them having worked and having avenues into these businesses. It also raises a question for me as to what their commercial model is. The B2C component, I could instantly see some financial models and revenue streams. B2B, I don't quite know the product well enough to understand how it's going to add value for a business to pay for the use of the technology. And I'm glad they've got LinkedIn in here as well, because as I'm reading this, my head constantly just goes back to, does this not exist with LinkedIn? Is this not already a form of a business card? I don't carry physical business cards anymore. I'll connect to you as we're talking to one another on LinkedIn. So if that's your competition, they've kind of got this market locked, and unless you do something really smart in this space, it's
or you find a way to collaborate with LinkedIn
for sure,
and then get acquired by them.
Exactly. And if that's the case, what you want within your founder experience is that they've worked for LinkedIn.
Exactly.
So you can kind of see how it all kind of ties together. So then business models. This is interesting, and I'd spend a little bit of time on this. So it's a SaaS B2B model. This is a little bit more of an enterprise play now. There's probably half a dozen major companies that they would want to sell into. Enterprise for me is very different to B2B because enterprise absolutely requires that the founders have experience within the companies that they're looking to sell into.
So true.
And so it's just too difficult to get your foot in the door in these companies. The sales cycle is a year, 2 years, 3 years. So if I get to... It's
hard to survive, like to make your company survive throughout all this time before you make a first contract.
There you go. One contract can keep your business going for years. No contract can have it dead in 6 months. So it just starts to feed back again into the founder's experience. So that's all kind of filtering into what I'm hoping to see within the founder space. And again, I haven't watched the video. I would do more work on the product now that I understand the space that it's in. And this is kind of why I don't get too hung up on the product to begin with, because depending on the business model and the space it's in, it can require very different things to succeed. Okay, so a SaaS model, I see how this now means I, as a business owner, no longer need to spend money on business cards for my employees. I will now leverage this digital solution and it will save me money. I would say it's a little concern for me. Business cards aren't hugely expensive. It may be $1 billion market, But once you whittle it all the way down, I'm trying to think of a company that would spend enough
more than
money here.
to really care, right?
Yeah, because like Salesforce may, because they have a lot of salespeople, but if they spend $1 million a year, do they really care? You know, is that big a number in the grand scheme of things for them? So I'm a little worried about that. And then the pricing here, basic 10, 50, 100. Is this per user? Ooh, okay, per user annually. So again, I'm not convinced $10 annually is going to be less expensive than the cost of 1,000 business cards that I probably won't ever get through in my lifetime. So I would be hoping for something smart with the tech, that it does more than just the business card. And I'm sure it does. But that's my next step with this.
That's the secret sauce.
There's got to be something here where, as a salesperson, it helps me to get more sales. It can't just be a cost-saving exercise. Partnership with IBM and partnership with AWS.
Boom!
All right.
Mic drop.
There you go. They've answered one of my questions. So I'm like, okay, good. This is for real. So this now means I'm interested again. So you can
Serious
see the ebb and flow. Yeah. I'm like, this could be your exit already. Now I'm more interested again. So clearly 2 major companies have some level of interest in this. That validates my concerns that the product doesn't do something more than just being a business card. So I'm now more confident again. I'm going to spend the 10, 15 minutes watching the video to see what the product actually does now. The thing that you need to represent is the thing that I'm looking for, which is senior positions in companies that are now going to be customers of yours. And if you are ex-IBM and ex-AWS, well, that's great. That shows me that the companies that you worked in had enough faith in you to take a punt on your new business because they're your customers now. So like, don't be shy, don't be afraid of that. So that's the thing that's missing here for an enterprise play like this. I don't know what they're valuing the company at, or if this is a safe and what the value cap is. So again, is it important to you at this moment? It is a little bit, because it tells me a few things. It tells me, firstly, you've got an investor thinks in multiples of a return, and so bigger valuation equals, I'd say, a lower likelihood of a higher multiple. But I invested recently in a company that's still seed, but it's $36 million valuation. Wow! So you might think, wow, that's a very small percentage, But I'm confident because I've seen exits with equivalent companies in the many billions. So I can still see the opportunity for a 20, 40 time multiple. Whereas if I can't see that, even if it's a 4 million valuation, and I'm just not seeing any competitors exit in this space, I'm more nervous about that than I am the 36 million. But it gives me a sense of where they are with their company, how well they can calculate and articulate value. The valuation is going to be nonsense. I get that. They're not going to have the data to be able to do this very scientifically. Right. But it tells you an awful lot of other things. Yeah, like, are they realistic in general? Exactly. And also, what do they think their company is? Is this a data play? Is this a consumer product play? Is this a SaaS play? Like, understanding all of those things is a level of awareness I'd like them to have, because ultimately their exit's going to need to be to a VC or somebody who, sorry, not a VC, but to a company who's in that space. And so if they think it's a data play and they think they're going to sell to a SaaS B2B company, they're probably off the mark again. So it's important that they're considering those things, and there's a number there. What is the reasonable number for you at this point? The numbers are going to be totally made up, unless they've got enough traction from the 2 customers they have, and I don't think they do, because their traction slide was a little weak. I don't think they're going to know. So for investors, there's ranges in which they operate. I think anything north of 10 million starts to move it out of a lot of angel groups, individual investors, micro VCs. Do you think it's a reasonable payroll of 100K a year? I personally, I prefer when companies get to a certain stage that they pay themselves well enough that they can actually afford to give all of their time to this. And so I don't have a problem with founders' payroll. I have a problem when it becomes such a percentage of the overall raise that really they're kind of raising 200K for their business. That's as much as is going to be invested. I don't think that lasts very long. And the other thing I don't know from this is how long they assume their raise Oh, here we go. 18-month runway. I missed that. Those numbers just don't add up for me. It feels like very little because I also mentioned there was 4 and 4 is 11 people on the slide.
Yeah,
so,
like how they're gonna feed the team, right?
Right. So I'm now nervous about the numbers associated with this. So I like the fact that they're bootstrapped. I like a bit of hustle, and I like people getting themselves to a certain stage themselves. So there's good things on here, but just a big gap on the finance slide. That would make me nervous. So get the last slide and it's contact information. So from here, I would now say I'm lukewarm. I need to know more about the product. If the product blows me away, I'll take the next step. If the product doesn't blow me away, I won't take the next step.